very clear, even when we make a selection of a firm, that there is no conflicts of interest thereafter, because the optics of that is just not something we want to carry forward. And it just, for me, it looked very suspect and conflict of interest. So when we're doing the search, I think in the contract, which we also were given, we need to stipulate that there will be no thereafter agreements, MOAs or MOUs, or purchase for consultants of the selected individual that could serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustees Worksession again. Could you help us clarify the current city manager? Were they selected from the national pool, or were they otherwise? How were they chosen? Yes. Trustees Worksession again.
Does anyone else, would you restate that so I can read it?
Yes, specifically, if you could give us guidance on the current city manager, were they selected from the candidates? Were they appointed? What was the process of this current?
Happy to have that answer for you. I will share. The national searches may still end with the selection of a local candidate. In this case, they did have a selection of the city manager was an internal in 2015. Yet a robust selection process was provided with confidence validation, and the best decision was made to meet the need and the fit with that community.
Very good. So it's an internal appointment. Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Trustee Satori, I believe you're next.
Yes.
Can you go back on
yes, and I am echoing some of the same sentiments I heard. So I do overall agree with the national search, but I just kind of weighed pros and cons. So I'll kind of speak to some of those bullet points. But some of the things that definitely ran through my research was deciding upfront that, as the process mentioned, if we want an external or internal candidate, because it is, kind of keeping that honesty, because what are we looking for? Because then if the intention is to find someone internally, someone that knows our district, we're going through an expense and a process when we have the final outcome already defined. So already just being honest, what are we looking for? Do we want to cast that way now? Are we really looking for? And I'm not saying either if I feel like it is internal or we should be external. But we need to agree. We need to come to a consensus upon that before going forward. So then I agree the national search can be the best way to find the person out there, because I don't really think we have the capabilities to do that ourselves and to cast that net that wide. From what I'm seeing too, the superintendent pool is shrinking a lot, and so we would need to utilize a firm that can really get that communication and that marketing out there better than we can ourselves. Nationwide firm, I also agree with saying it helps eliminate that bias. So if we are then going with that, saying you do not have a person in mind, keep a nationwide firm, it helps eliminate the bias. It helps them really evaluate each candidate, without any preconceived notions and bring this forward to us. Also determining those top priorities in that RFP and getting that community input for that. That was stated as well, that I think that's a huge component. I have been part of a lot of those hiring process for administrators and such, where we have like a committee to do those interviews. I found it very helpful, but I'd love to see that process as well, that interview process. When I spoke to some of the municipalities and some of those positions in leadership like that, the majority of the time it seems that they were kind of planning for that and have been essentially training and teaching someone within, but when that person wasn't there, then they utilized a third-party as well. Another thing really to consider in going with a nationwide is also the timeline, because of some that I had spoken to, they did end up being like 9 to 12 months. It ended up extending longer than they anticipated. And then the concern is, which I think, we can be front possibly with that firm of this is the timeline we want them to begin to start. We need to see it be complete by the beginning of next school year, because otherwise, if we do end up with turnover of board, it could then kind of start that process all over, and then we're going to have a much lengthier search as it pans out. So kind of knowing your goal is to get them with the current board, and by next school year, we have to start with that timeline in mind and make sure it's about and kind of pre-plan the timelines so we can get everything, all the work done that we need to get done. Definitely I got a lot of the feedback as well about going to see the people, because many people interview well and then they are not what they seem. Even when you do reference checks and all of that, it doesn't pan out. So got a lot of feedback from prior searches that part was crucial on going to not only interviewing and also their communities, getting feedback from their communities as well without violating meeting laws, of course. The other concern I heard was sometimes the firms of asking to be able to see all of the candidates that were submitted, because there was some concern from some prior board members I spoke to of they presented the finals, but then they realized that there were other ones that might have been more qualified, and of knowing why those selections were made. Why were these people eliminated, and why were these still being able to see them? Like, I think we need to see all of the candidates and then be able to have it presented to us why they selected. And like one more ones. I think that's pretty much covers my thoughts. But again, I will emphasize too that, you know, just kind of weigh pros and cons. I do feel that we are in the position to be.
Thank you, Trustees Victoria. We need to share this, and I want to clarify. I mentioned the accounting, the work of the city manager was they search nationally as well.
It seemed like there had been some different, but there had been some nationwide and some that were more smaller, like team, with large scale.
And this current
Things happen more rarely because I guess it's typically is that they are kind of forward thinking of that. How are we preparing someone that we know for the needs of the community and, you know, the goals of what direction we need to go.
So it's more of what I hear you saying. It is a intentional direction to cultivate internal talents to be able to provide employers. This is the preferred path versus that. Thank you, Trustee Satori. I'm going to turn off your mic, or if you can help me turn off your mic. Just do the ads.
Thank you, Madam President. I won't repeat some of the stuff that's said, but what I do want to add is that I agree with the pros side of the national search. And one of the things that I have found is that the trend is not just to look at educational only search firms. So they are casting net wider, and they're looking at executive search firms, right? And so if the person could have an educational background, maybe earlier in their career, and they have business life experience outside of that, then they send such a better candidate. So we could go that traditional route, or an executive search firm that does have also an educational strand. So food for thought. I also want the community to know that since January, our board president leadership has the focus of community engagement. From day one, all 11 of us agreed that we can't do without you. And the other national trend is that community engagement, so that the community has ownership. We're not the same community we were in 2017. We have grown. We're going in a different direction. The business community is going to come up and share the fact that we're trying to cultivate industries that are not even here yet, right? We're looking at fintech and biochemicals, and biomedical. And so we are the supply side, and we have to lead the demand side. So I think that's why the community engagement and that leadership is going to be critical for our success. I would also say that the national trend is about aligning development, economic development, and education. It's intersecting. You can't do it alone. And so that's why the community engagement is so critical. I would have to say that I also took part in several NSHE Chancellor community boards or committees. I think that they called it, and we were looking for the president of UL and also for the chancellor, I as an individual of the community got to weigh in on what we were looking for, got to interview the candidates. And so that's what another best practice I think that would work well here. One, because we need ownership from the different community stakeholders. But in addition, even though that community is by the person and they make a mistake, heaven forbid, but at least there's ownership. Felt like we had a say in the process. Next president of UNO several years back. So the next chancellor for the higher ed institution. And I would just say that I would be happy to submit my local municipality homework as well. I won't repeat it, but I do think that if we are not in unison on the right things that we want, we're going to make it a nightmare for that person, whoever's going to come in next to help us to get our kids to meet the demand side equation. So it's upon us to make sure that we're asking for the criteria that we want. And that person right now is probably watching us nationally or locally and figuring out how we work for that individual. And so that's my 2 cents, and I'd be happy to submit my.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Wilson, to Adam. I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Watson.
Thank you, Madam President. Just really quickly, everyone has spoken eloquently about their role. For the city of North Las Vegas, we have done both internal and external hirings. The last city manager was hired externally, so, but it does not mean that it's either or. It's just that whatever best choice for that position. And my personal thinking is that we need to have it wide and do a national search, because that's going to give you more opportunities to get the right best fit for this Clark County School District. Some of the things I want to make sure that we look for is what we do is definitely community input. You have to have community input that's been stressed a number of times. And I thought we also need to under this regime as far as the superintendent and what their goals moving forward. That's going to be critical, in my opinion. The other thing is that the ones that I do know that we need to include is educators, parents, students, and as far as the superintendent is concerned, it's about bottom line. It's about producing results. We know all of the great things on resume, but it's about producing results. Gotta have
and I heard you say that the current city manager is elected from
that is my understanding.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to continue down the queue here to members who have not had a chance to speak, and I'll circle back to members who have spoken. Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a couple comments, honestly. I think number one, it's really important to know that we're not going to make everybody happy. No matter what we choose, someone's going to be upset. We're going to get hate comments like we always do. So it's just knowing that going into it. I also think that I wanted to be aware that while yes, we want community input and parent input, teacher input, and input, understand that our community changes every 4 years on average. That we are the most socially diverse community inside the entire nation, maybe with outside of New York or maybe LA. I also think that I'm not necessarily opposed to an outside search. I'm also not against it or against it for it. Either way, I think I'm more neutral than anything on that one. And then as far as a couple comments were made about getting kind of like at these outside search firms, looking at who they hired and who's still there and how do they interact. I think that's great, and you absolutely should do that, except for the fact that you should also understand that our board is not like any other board, right? We sit in just a very diverse economy, and we also have some appointed board members. While there are other appointed board members in the nation, those are typically voting members that are appointed by the state legislature or by the cities or anything else like that. So I think that's really important to note. I also don't know what the dynamic is between their board and their superintendent and their state board of education. So you have to be aware of that as well. And then understanding that like this is such a weird district in the sense that we have a decentralized district and it's also centralized at the same time. So our board is never going to interact with the superintendent like I would say, you know, California, right? It's just a very, very different world. So I just want to put those out there. I don't really have any comments other than that. It's pretty much kind of what I'm thinking as I'm hearing everybody. I just want to make sure that if we go forward with a national search, that everybody, all 11 of us on this board are at the same time, because the moment that we get public pressure, if we have a break in the system, it's just going to be chaos, and we don't need chaos in our district. We really just need us. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to go a little bit more linear in nature because that's how I kind of formed my processes. I did go through and read the minutes for all of the municipalities. Every single one of them were direct. One of them, the city of Henderson, was after a national search. On average, they worked about 20 years with their municipalities. I didn't see any evidence of them doing national. I did see that it was posted online and people probably could apply nationally, but I didn't see them hire any search firms or anything like that. I feel like a majority of the board might have already made their decision, but I am going to state the pros and cons in a linear nature because I've already. So for national search, I think the pros are members of the public have been very supportive in public meetings. It allows the board to collaborate with the community, provided they place an intentional focus on prioritizing broader community input. It would yield a higher number of applicants. An external candidate could bring a fresh perspective. Some people will respect an internal hire more if a national search is conducted. That's what I have for national pros. For cons, I have some members of the public were vocally supportive last time. Some became unhappy during the active process and it was open up to internal candidates. Some were unhappy immediately after the results were publicly available. Some were unhappy a few months later. There was a very competitive job market for superintendents. The job landscape for superintendents has shifted considerably since 2016. Over 50% of urban superintendents have been hired within the last few years. The shortage of top-level talent has resulted in individuals with very minimum experience being placed in the platform. The political climate in the Nevada education sector makes the job very unattractive. A large number of urban school districts completed national searches recently and hired locally after an extensive and lengthy process. And I think we have an opportunity to learn. Additional costs beyond what the board spent on the severance package of the outgoing superintendent. Washo's budget is $100,000. The costs include the search firm expenses as well as travel expenses for candidates. The search for Clark is going to be more expensive. It could yield the same exact outcome, which equates to wasted resources, energy, and time. While some members of the public will be satisfied with the extra effort, the broader community might not be understanding. Local support has been given for a national search by well-connected groups, but average constituents seem more supportive than internal hire. It's a lengthy process, 4 to 6 month minimum. A lot of the work the board is committed to doing with the council can't begin until either process is completed. Doing both at the same time is fair to the intern and will get confusing for the board and the community. Delayed tasks include much needed conversations around adding depth in data reporting, revising goals and guardrails. And the longer the process takes, the less focused the board will become and the less we focus on monitoring to now. Delayed will also result in the bulk of the Council of Great City Schools work being completed by inexperienced board members. They'll need to start back at square one before they can contribute. You're going to lose some institutional knowledge at the board level when election cycles happen, and your work with the council will become exceptionally challenging. Members of the community have expressed a desire to have some relief before the start of the school year, which is very less likely to occur in a national search. The process of engaging in a national search automatically creates district instability. It could possibly lead to the most experienced staff transitioning out, which will cause significant institutional loss. Institutional knowledge loss. The instability will benefit external groups at the expense of students and families. Uncertainty at the top could lead to a loss of high-level positions, and these high-level positions will become increasingly difficult to replace. For instance, when there was friction at the board in 2021, actually resulted in several of the high-level positions being taken for student. Many of the changes the district implemented within the last few years were a fresh perspective, and they weren't all well received by the community. Some of the district's challenges are foundational in nature and require the focus to be regrounding ourselves in the basics and examining staff workloads and priorities. Sometimes when people say fresh perspective, what they really mean is they want to improve things, they want to have better communication, they want to make sure things are implemented properly. And internal candidates are almost always better poised to address this, provided they have the right alignment between skills and community. The upcoming legislative session will clearly focus on accountability in the education sector. Any external candidate hired prior to the next session will not have enough insight to successfully counter false political narratives at the legislative level. Hiring an external candidate is unlikely to reverse the trend of the district being directly targeted by legislators partnering with the district's largest bargaining. A single external candidate is unlikely to be approved unanimously by the voting members of the board. So hiring an external candidate last time created an instant division within the board and within the broader community. So whichever decision is made is unlikely to be unanimous, and a national search provides ample opportunity for the board to function. In addition, this is my last. I have more, but I'll wrap this part up. Some members of the board have already signaled a preference for an internal person, so you're going to have a much smaller pool of candidates to choose from, because not a lot of really experienced board members or superintendents want to actually come on a board that automatically has a department. That is the pros and cons. I was kind of looking for some pros and cons out of what my peers have suggested in the national search. So if you have something to add to this that you think is a pro, I'm willing to hear it in round 2. And then I'll do the pros and cons for the local state search. So for the local state search, the pros are there's examples of this process successfully occurring. Brian Cram, Claude Perkins, Kenny Gwynn, Walt Ruffles, and Pat Skorkowski, all of them were internal hires. And until the year 2000 or so, the district seemed to have a process where you did train up. You had institutional knowledge because there was an expectation that you were going to have some stability in the district. It also, like I just said, allows for institutional knowledge to be maintained. It prevents an external hire from having to learn very hard public lessons that I think we've all learned. There is a reason successful organizations create a culture that includes succession planning, and deep organizational change takes a decade, and you cannot possibly do it if you're constantly hiring externally and you don't address the succession planning. You can create stability and you hire internally, and you can still create a noticeable shift. This is more likely if the board is intentional and is also willing to shift. I think this is where the work that we are building on right now comes into play with the council. You guarantee the person has extensive knowledge of what they're walking into. It prevents culture shock. 5 out of 17 Nevada school districts replaced their superintendent within the last year. Washington's external hire only lasted a short time, partially due to culture. It minimizes the narrative that comes with hiring an external person who is frequently viewed as a short-term outsider without roots or loyalty to the community's children. It also allows for a reasonable amount of applications, but reduces the probability of hiring someone who won't be successful in the position. You can still allow for community feedback, but you acknowledge the reality of the national landscape related to superintendent searches and the need to actually have somebody who understands the landscape. Internal hires also have a longer average tenure, 7 years, when compared to external hires in the district, which is 4.7 years. Okay, my cons for, and there are quite a few cons, so it's not all roads over here. Some individuals will automatically, it's not that. Some individuals will automatically dismiss an individual with extensive knowledge of the system. Inevitably, some members who have transitioned out of the district will apply. They are not going to receive the job, regardless of the search method. And a local state search makes that a lot more obvious and can increase the friction between these people. The process will be messy because of open meeting law. And also, if you utilize a search firm, regardless of the process, you actually are able to maintain confidentiality, so you have more applicants. That's my pros and cons.
Thank you, Trustee. Thank you, Trustee Brooks. I'm going to turn it over before we go to colleagues who are currently like to speak again. I'm going to over to Trustee Zamora, if she would like to provide any additional comment on the pros and cons, assignment and discussion items. Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. My colleagues brought up a lot of great points when it comes to the national search, and I do agree with a lot of them. I just wanted to also add, because the community listening part was a huge talking point for a lot of them. As I was not on the board in 2018, I definitely remember seeing the community participating in those conversations, but I'm also wanting to add, we need to take in that information. And I say that because one of the first interactions I had during this search for the superintendent, there was a lot of community input about just checking in with previous employees and checking in with the people they work with, which I know one of my colleagues mentioned. And it seemed like it went unheard. So figuring out a way that we add, keeping those conversations as we continue this. I do also lean more of a national search. I know the cost is much higher, and when we talk about money, it's the first thing in our mind for many of us. But I think this would be a great investment. The pros that I think that we have right now is we have invested in like a culture climate research, which I always bring up, and I think that's a great thing to be able to use as we start research. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Want to acknowledge that just for Trustee Williams or my colleagues, if you'll entertain my contributions to this discussion, I would appreciate it. And I'll essentially to the next part of this. These a lot of pros and cons about the national and the local or statewide. The list have already been brought up and addressed. I want to go over a couple of items that I felt like were a little different and have a different flavor to it. And before I go into that list, I think it's important to, one of the things that I'm hearing from my colleagues is there is a very narrowing talent pool in the superintendent space, and that is think about my desired outcome to continue focus on student outcomes and ultimately focus on success of our students, excuse me, about my son, and in all decisions I make on behalf of the school district think about my boys, specifically my son who's currently in age. And I think about the quality of education that I want for him and his friends. And so I want you to, that's the lens that I'm looking at this through, in addition to the organizational lens that is very much, I have the privilege of being a little closer to the functions of the organization. Trustees Zamora mentioned the culture and climate survey. I'm so grateful that you continue to bring that up, Trustee Zamora, because prior to the departure of our superintendent, the work that they moved to ensure, and the new members would not know this because we had meetings yet to discuss these particular items, but there's progress being made, and I worry about so one of the cons of a national search is that because of its lengthy time, we would be in a position to really have to reprioritize a lot of our goals in order to have assess our culture and climate. We have to have a leader at the top that's consistent and sets the tone of the culture of the organization. I also believe on the concept of the national search, there is our current salary we have we've had for the last superintendent is not competitive for experienced superintendents, which is what I hear consistently from the community. They want results, they want and certainly I do too. Want results, want proven leader, you want a leader who has experience with student outcomes, who hears the community, who is politically aware, and doesn't fall into areas that can injure the district, hurt the district. The reality is we're the fifth largest school district. There are 4 other school districts that have a superintendent. They wouldn't, I don't see them coming down to our pay range because they all pay more significantly more. The reason I bring that up is because just not too long ago, provided the last superintendent increase in terms of significant amount of backlash. I just can't imagine coming to this board and or the community and asking for additional resources to compensate the superintendent for the experience that we expect. And that is worrisome for me personally. I also hear this earlier as well. The intent to focus on student outcomes is a priority of mine, and I have appreciated our colleagues' support in that space. This piece, which is absolutely a necessary and important project, will require intense amount of energy and effort. It may require us to absolutely refocus our work with the council and any other projects like the culture and climate study. And then just Brooks mentioned this already, but I think that it can't be emphasized enough that the outcome of any national search will potentially create a vacuum of lost knowledge that will take place in any transition and change in an organization automatically creates loss of knowledge. And if we as a board and we listen to the members of our community are truly focused on student outcomes, I wonder how making any decision to the national search will impact the ongoing work that needs to take place in the stability of the organization. And I granted that because I know based off of Washington, the search process, Douglas is currently under a search process, Douglas County School District under a search process, I believe. It's one of their Ryan School District. It also under out of the 17 school district. They are currently undergoing the search process. So there is the competition on our end, not to say that we have certainly a lot of benefits that these districts do not have. However, it is important to keep that in mind. And I think that is a conflict with the national scale and then the regional, local, state perspective. On the pro side of the local and state the local and state superintendent search, I see that one of the things that I hear from my colleagues is that we want to be able to start our permanent superintendent by the start of the school year. That is August. And between now and August, we have four work sessions, 4 months essentially. I believe we begin the school year very early in August. So in order to kind of get this work going, we really would have to, we would benefit from local and state search just simply because of timing. It could be more cost effective, focused. I am in support of I believe that a search firm to help us focus our current needs and goals will be essential in this process. Someone to help facilitate this discussion and ensure that we are creating a space for any candidates who want to participate in a search or feel comfortable with participating in it and not something that we will necessarily facilitate. And I think the other things to consider, questions that I specifically have that are that brought to my attention that were very part of this process with the pros and cons looking at the national improvement. So they have more pros for the local and state and more cons for the national process. Some things that came to mind are what path will best serve our students and our organization? How do we utilize this moment as an opportunity to build unity and support district outside of special interest groups who have traditionally in the past, based on minutes and knowledge from members, have played a role in navigating or influencing the selection of a superintendent. How do we, in a very heavy manner, how do we manage competing priorities as a group? And I mentioned that as from the culture and climate study to the student outcomes work that we've engaged in. And then the bigger question that I have for all of us is what happens when community members who have advocated for this approach, one way or the other, are not satisfied with the first decision, or even choose to undermine this governing body's authority by creating division, ultimately losing focus on student outcomes. So again, those are some of the heavy questions that I asked myself, and one of the reasons why I, in my pros and cons list, have leaning towards a local and a regional focused search with their executive search firm versus sort of firm that will support our focus to clarify our needs and goals of what next needed. Okay, colleagues, I believe everybody has had one round. Trustees Attorney, Trustee Devastos, and Trustee Swan, I see that you're in the queue. However, we did commit to the public before we go into another round of discussions. Are you comfortable with that? That's great. Okay, we wait to hear from them. And Trustee Attorney. Thank you. There'll be a second round. We'll provide everybody a chance. Thank you so much. I'd like to turn it over to public comment to hear from audience. I will begin with Mary Beth Seawold, followed by Amber Stidham and Glenn Fishes.
Good evening, School Board President Evelyn Garcia Morales and Trustee. Good to see you all tonight. For the record, my name is Mary Beth Ewald, President and CEO of the Vegas Chamber, speaking on agenda item 2.01. As many of you know, the Chamber is calling on you to conduct a national search for our next superintendent. We have testified at previous board meetings, and we penned a joint op-ed with the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance in yesterday's Las Vegas Review Journal. I also announced it at our State of the Chamber and Enrollment Trustees installation luncheon last week to more than 900 business and community leaders, where it was met with much applause. Why is the national search so important to the Vegas Chamber, you might ask? It is because the superintendent is one of the most important leaders in the state of Nevada. The superintendent is responsible for overseeing an education system that has a profound impact on every aspect of our community, our economy, and our lives.
The following organizations have all signed a letter urging you to conduct a national search for CCSD superintendent. The Vegas Chamber, the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, the Council for Better Nevada, Clark County Education Association, Clark County Association of School Administrators and Professional Technical Employees, Henderson, Asian, Latin, and Urban Chambers, the Retail Association, Resort Association, Nevada Community Foundation, Andre Agassi Foundation, ACLU of Nevada, Nevada State LCIO, the Engelstad Foundation, and Wing Song Trust. These organizations have all signed a letter urging you to conduct a national search to identify candidates who bring fresh perspectives and best practices of success. I cannot recall a time when such a broad and diverse coalition has come together for a single community cause. Whomever the school board selected for this role should not be predetermined. This decision is far too important to be limited by geography, familiarity, or expediency. To set artificial barriers by only looking at local candidates will only disenchant and disenfranchise the entire community. The way a national search is conducted is just important. Plans from previous searches should not just be dusted off. That is why the Chamber encourages the school board to utilize a qualified search firm that has a strong reputation for finding top educational leadership and operational talent. A firm with a track record of identifying well-qualified candidates who embody the skill sets that our district needs to positively move the needle on students' achievement. Serious questions should also be asked in this search. What is a candidate's success rate on factors such as college and career readiness, math and reading proficiency, and high school graduation rates? A qualified superintendent also needs to be a leader who inspires our administrators, our teachers, and our support staff to do their very best. Top candidates, whether local or national, need to be trusted by parents and respected by employers, civic leaders, policymakers, and the entire community. One thing is certain. Mary Lane. Thank you.
That works. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share comments. I'm Amber Stidham. I'm also a product of the Clark County School District, and I'm a mom of a student that's district system. And I'm honored to present on behalf of the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, which was mentioned just earlier. And on behalf of our executive committee, we are the regional development authority for Southern Nevada. And you might ask, why would we be standing here? Our mission is to bring diverse business and industry along with those career opportunities to our region to drive economic growth and prosperity. What comes out of the public education system is incredibly important to us. Student attainment is incredibly important to all of us. For us at LVGEA, this is really all about student outcomes, not the convenience of a placement. The decision that you all make in this manner does directly impact all of us in this community, including the organization that I serve. As a representative of various stakeholders in Southern Nevada, including education, local government, business, nonprofits, and more. In fact, we have the largest public and private business board in the Southern Nevada area. This is a really vital role the superintendent plays in our community for a number of reasons that were mentioned earlier by Mary Beth Seawald, and she did an excellent job. Public education is incredibly important to us. Additionally, knowing that this position represents one of the nation's largest school districts and more than a $3 billion budget, this role in placing the right person for our students and community is even more critically important. This is an executive position. This is really important to our community. And it's for those reasons that we urge the board to conduct a comprehensive national search for the next superintendent, ensuring transparency, setting clear qualifications, which I know was discussed today, and facilitating a robust community involvement, because ultimately it's about educational attainment for our students. And because it was mentioned earlier too, I wanted to add, even my own organization, when we're looking to hire for critically important roles, we still go out and do a search, even if we might have a person internally, because I owe it and we owe it to our team and to the clients that we serve to do an exhaustive search to find the absolute right candidate for these types of positions. And I would love to operate a $3 billion budget. but that's a really important role. I just thank you for your time, and certainly if there's any questions or if you can lean on us as an organization to help, we're willing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Followed by Lori and Jim Fraser.
President Garcia Morales and members of the Board of Trustees. I'm Glenn Christensen, Chairman of the Leadership Institute in Nevada and Chair of the Las Vegas Economic Alliance Policy Committee. Our committee, or our community, is at a critical inflection point with respect to public education. The board can meaningfully redirect the trajectory for student success, starting with its appointment of a new leader who will set the tone for excellence in every school within the system. However, the process for selecting our new leader is crucial. This is an opportunity for the board to embrace community concerns regarding public education and to set the path together for better student success. With respect, I propose the following steps for the process of selecting the new superintendent. 1. Given that several trustees are up for election in November, the selection of a new superintendent should begin after the election. This will ensure that a new superintendent will not be forced on the board by previous members, will be selected by trustees who have at least 2 or more years tenure, and will specifically establish accountability for selection. 2, to ensure in our community that we are getting the most qualified person to lead our most important community function, the education of our students, perform a national search, which would include local candidates. 3, consider appointing co-superintendents, one to guide the academic side of the organization, one to guide the operational and administrative side of the organization. This structure might be appropriate to alleviate some of the challenges in finding one person for the role who has these 2 disparate skills. 4, actively engage the community at large in a highly transparent way by creating a very inclusive and diverse committee to include recognized education advocates from the business and non-profit sector, as well as parents, teachers, administrators, and students. The committee would engage with the board to identify the specific skills and manpower style ideal for the new superintendent role. You compile a list for the board to engage the applicants as to how they would address challenges and opportunities like climate and cultural building, discipline in schools, building trust and confidence both within the system and with external stakeholders, and how to expand our nation-leading platforms like our magnet, robotics, and arts programs. Thank you for your time and attention and your faith for the difficult challenge. I hope through the process the board can ultimately unanimously agree on the selection. That'd be a great start for the new league.
Lori. Lori. Jim. Lori. Danielle. And Crazy. Followed by Michael John. Then Steve McMahon. And Nicole.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just so you know, the next speaker, Michael Jan, is not here. So, thank you, Madam President, distinguished trustees, interim superintendent. For the record, my name is Jim Frazee. I'm a high school teacher, and I also have the honor of being vice president of the largest target union county that Trustee Brooks mentioned earlier. So, with all due respect, and I do mean that, with all due respect to the members who spoke for a local search and the pros and cons, I can just say, what nonsense. If you're talking about a loss of culture, which you have complained about, if the culture was coherent, competent, and successful, then that loss would be mourned. But no one can use those adjectives in CCSD in the same sentence for the last 6 years. You talk about the cost of an extended search, national search. But I respectfully say this board, this body, and the last superintendent has never met a consultant that they weren't willing to spend millions of dollars to. Our children, our families, our communities, our businesses need more. I would argue that no other school board in the country, except one run by you, Madam President, would even have this topic under discussion. A local and state search is, excuse me, a local and state search is not so subtle code for next person up in the failed JAR administration. That happens to be Brenda Larson Mitchell.
And with respect, better than anyone else, that's all your time.
Thank you.
Please do not leave reference to staff. In this case, we're on the dais or anywhere else.
Okay, we'll,
Thank you for being respectful in your remarks.
all right, thank you. I disagree with you, but CCSD is the largest employer in the state of Nevada. It runs the second largest transportation system, including casinos. It runs the third largest food providing system. I would defer to Trustee Bustamante Adams's comment that you need an executive that has experience in a large organization, and that's not to be found currently. I would respectfully say that the next superintendent's most important job is to understand that he or she is in the people business. We deal with 300,000 students, 40-some thousand staff and families, and having someone who can deal coherently with people and bring people together is a must. It's not surprising if you would not listen to 82% of our members who got polled and said they wanted a national search. And by mention by name, 80% do not want the current interim superintendent. It's not surprising that every chamber and business organization, as well as labor, AFL-CIO, has also demanded a national search. They are the employers of our graduates. Their voices need to be heard. I thank you for your time.
Nicole, Nicole, and then Dr. Beagle, followed by Jana and Trivia.
Thank you, President Christine Morales, and members of the board. My name is Nicole Rourke, and I'm with the city of Henderson as their director of government. You have a really good job ahead of you. Selecting the next superintendent isn't easy, but no, it shouldn't be. We encourage you to take your time, seek community input, and develop qualifications that will lead to finding the best leader for this time. We encourage you to seek a leader who will take an open and honest look at the way the system educates students and create staff. We encourage you to seek a leader who will take bold action to create learning environments and opportunities that will result in greatly improved student outcomes. We encourage you to seek a leader who will consider innovative solutions, including an improved schools. We encourage you to seek a leader who will give schools the autonomy to address the needs of their students while holding them accountable for results. We encourage you to seek a leader who will engage local governments, elected officials, state agencies, and nonprofit organizations who all have a vested interest in student success. Finally, we encourage you to seek a leader who can unify this board and our community. The only way you know if you found a leader such as this is if you consider all interested candidates through a national search. Finally, the next superintendent must be selected by a unanimous vote. They have many challenges ahead of them and many. If this board can provide us, let the next board make this decision. The board that hired the superintendent should be the one that they will work for in the first years of their tenure. You have an active leader. Take the time that this decision requires. We encourage you to build community confidence by being showing leadership and taking leadership.
Good evening, Dr. Tiffany Beamon for the record. The task of finding a new superintendent is not one to take lightly. As I have stated so many times, we are a unique city, and it will take a unique individual to fix the broken parts of this district. We are not Colorado, we are not Los Angeles, we are not Miami-Dade. Nationwide searches have not proven successful to CCSD, and the evidence is in black and white, as Trustee Brooks pointed out. Our students suffer when we put ego and hubris above our students. Operationally, our new superintendent needs clear and consistent rules to follow, with clear and consistent guidelines, benchmarks, and goals. The requirements need to be crystal clearly outlined before you rope someone into this job who will try to promise things that cannot be kept.
I do believe it was trustee Esparza who pointed out that even with minimum F and minimum requirements, we couldn't get our district above 90% graduation rates. Our new superintendent cannot be the same old, same old. Our new superintendent should not be anywhere near Crable and Council of Great City Schools. Our new superintendent should understand the transiency of CCSD, the unique ELL needs of CCSD, the tension amongst the board in CCSD, the top-heavy administration of CCSD, the dangerous game of promoting up from within underqualified candidates via backroom promises and only veiled threats in CCSD, the teacher shortage in CCSD, the beleaguered classrooms of CCSD, the pockets of greatness in CCSD, the learning loss in CCSD, the lack of consistency, transparency, and accountability in CCSD, and the need for fun in our classrooms in CCSD. The new superintendent has a heavy weight to carry, and needs to have all of this spelled out before they even think about taking this job. You cannot promise them a diamond and hand them a lump of coal, then shine it up by giving them all the power and none of the responsibilities. No Garcia, no Jones, no Jara. We need someone who understands our culture, our climate, our cities, our state. Internal or external, make sure they actually do the job. Care about students, staff, stakeholders, and moving the needle. It's silly to automatically assume we won't find this locally. Thank you.
Yeah, Mitrovic for the record, dear Madam President, dear members of the school trustees. Our family moved from Europe where the best schools are public, where the schools have the gyms for the PE and where kids learn foreign languages and elementary school. Here, my kids go to the Goldfield Elementary. As a concerned parent and active member of the parent leadership team since 2019, I feel compelled to address some pressing issues within the CCSD. It's disheartening to see the decline in rankings, with even prominent schools like Iliade experiencing a significant drop in ratings. And this downward trend, particularly in academic progress, is alarming and demands immediate attention. Furthermore, the recent demonstrations by the CCEA highlighted dissatisfaction among parents and teachers alike. We cannot afford to have our educators and students taking the streets to demand strong leadership from CCSD. Nowadays, parents become substitute teachers, and the opportunity arose due to the critical shortage of teachers within our public school system, prompting parents to step in and assist. However, the cumbersome and efficient hiring process for substitute teachers causing problems, and it takes a reasonable long time for CCSD to conduct interviews despite the urgent need for substitute teachers on a daily basis. It's evident that our teachers are not happy, and neither are the parents. We urgently need nationwide search and strong leadership to address these systematic issues and restore confidence in CCSD. I implore the board to take decisive actions to streamline the hiring process and prioritize teacher support, implement measures to improve academic performance across the district. The time for passive observation has passed. Our community demands action, demands change, demands leadership worthy of our children's future. The erosion of our school's reputation, reflecting in declining ratings, cannot be ignored. As a parent deeply entrenched in the educational fabric of the district, I witnessed firsthand the dedication of our teachers, their tireless commitment to nurturing young minds despite overwhelming obstacles. Yet their efforts are met with disrespect, their profession devalued by bureaucratic incompetence, and we cannot allow this to continue. The demonstrations were not a mere protest, they were a rallying cry for change. Parents stood shoulder to shoulder with educators and kids, demanding accountability, demanding respect. Our teachers and children deserve better than to be forced onto the streets to look for the resources and support they need to succeed. I stand before you not just a concerned parent, but as a voice for the countless others who share my frustration, my anger, and my determination. We demand strong, capable leadership that could recognize the invaluable role teachers play in the roles of shaping the future community. And the time for empty promises and half measures is over. Time for bold, decisive, determined action is now. And the future of our children, our community, and our society hangs in the national search and balance. Will you rise to the challenge, or will you allow our schools to language and beyond?
We'll move on to individuals submitted a yellow card. Kenny Bellner, followed by Mr. Mackey. Mackey, Kenny Bellner, Mr. Mackey, and then Jeff Paul.
Good evening, trustees. For the record, my name is Kenny Belknap. I'm a social studies teacher at Liberty High School, and I currently serve as the treasurer for the Clark County Education Association. The decision you're all about to make is going to set a course for this district and for the community's children for years to come. This decision is a golden opportunity to rebuild trust that has been shattered by this district and by this board over the last 6 years. But from what I've heard from the crowd, from you up on that dais, it seems like we're ready to squander it already. In starting this process, there are 4 things that I believe that you should be as central points of this search. It needs to be a national search to find the best candidate possible, with our locals included. Of course, let's look internally, but why cut our nose off just for the fact of expediency? We must find ways to be as transparent every step of the way, build back the trust, invite in every aspect of the community, your educators, your principals, your parents, your students. They deserve to have a say in this. It shouldn't just be rammed through with the small pool of candidates that we have here in Nevada. You all said it yourself. There are 5 superintendent searches right now. The pool in Nevada is very shallow. We have to extend that out to give our students an opportunity to have the best education they can possibly have. We also need to have minimum qualifications for these individuals. They need to have a background of moving the needle. This district is large, it's complicated. I've been a part of it my entire life as a student and now as a proud educator in this community. We need to have somebody with fresh eyes come in with quality backgrounds to try to move this needle forward. The answer isn't just picking someone from the outside, though. We have to have higher standards in this. We have to have track records, no more people with potential. But we need to have people that can build success from the school level to the county level and for our entire district. I urge you all to do the right thing tonight, to open this up to a national search. It will not harm anything taking our time to make such a large decision. If we rush it, we're going to do our children a disservice. And please, for once, live up to the saying that you've been using for the last 5 years. Be number 1 for kids. Put them first and put our egos and our trips for power behind us. Thank you.
Ernest Matthews, project. Followed by Dan Price. And Anna Binder. Matthew, you'll come up. And like have a seat up here. Okay, after this report.
Good evening, President Garcia Morales, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, the members of the board. My name is Jeff Horn, and I am the Executive Director of the Clark County Association, School Administrators and Professional Technical Employees, representing over 1,500 CCSD administrators, of which 98% are members. I'm here today to bring to your attention the results of a recent survey administered by our association to more than our 1,500 members regarding the selection process of the next Clark County School District. The results of the survey were sent to each of you this month, as well as to all of our members. Of the over 600 members who participated in the survey, 92% were supportive of implementing a comprehensive superintendent search and selection process that includes public consideration of qualified candidates before making any final decisions. We firmly believe that involving the community in our decision-making process will enhance transparency and accountability. Furthermore, our members have expressed their endorsement of the CCSD board, school trustees to have a vote in the selection of the new CCSD superintendent. While we acknowledge the existing legal restrictions that prevent appointed trustees from voting on motions before the we believe it is imperative to recognize and consider their input and recommendations to ensure collaboration and inclusivity. The Clark County Association of School Administrators and Professional Technical Employees value the important work that you, as members of the board, undertake on behalf of the school. We are committed to continuing our partnership with you as this critical decision and pledge our support in any way we can to ensure a smooth experience for past election to reflect the best interests of the school district, the community that you,
miembros de su gestión de maestros estén juntados, formaron un nuevo liderazgo a las afueras de la sede la ubicación de Unraveling para protestar y así exigir la pronta selección de un candidato que lidere una vez el distrito ese. Recordemos que en la directiva del CCSD la segunda pasada 22
May not legally allowed to vote,
se le permitió
in NRS, they they are non-voting members. I want to make sure our trustees don't want them to vote is simply NRS, that we are following. Provide. Mr. Mackey?
Good evening, board. Name is Ernest Mackey. As I spoke 2 meetings ago, I mentioned virus spread. You all are talking about a new storm just by getting rid of the superintendent's job. The virus is still spreading. It's still down there. Don't just get rid of one person and think it's over. There's a lot more people in here. We got a lot of conflict of interest in here. Even there's people sitting on boards everywhere that brings conflict to this board. All over the city. It's Rico. It's a lot of. We have superintendents that need to be removed immediately, especially District G. And especially your leaders are telling trustees not to talk to the community. That's a movement. That's what your trustees are up here. Get with your community and communicate with them. And by telling your trustees up under you not to talk to community, that's like I said 3 meetings ago, I'm taking action. We had a big meeting this Monday. We had fast. And you will hear about it. You will hear about it. And they called for another meeting on the 18th at school. You think I'm playing around? You all gonna find out what plan is. Because I'm not gonna stop till something's done. Not only my issue at Las Vegas High School, it's at all these schools across the city. And you all want to single mine out and think it's just one issue? No. You all after the Black young women also. It's a big problem. I had 3 parents call me this morning about it from different schools. You want to single me out like it's only my issue. You try to suppress them and try to stop it from getting up to the top and be heard by the news media. That's why you have them to cut off their cameras when something not you don't want to be heard. They do it also. They already know when to cut off the cameras. But they're gonna be cut off this next meeting on the 18th this month. You all can find out very soon. Thank you.
Mr. Mackey, we don't take threats at all. Just to be clear, that is not a threat. Fine. Let's start off the week.
This is what we need. This is what we need.
Clarity of there's alignment, whether
Madam President, Board of Trustees, my name is Dan Price. I'm a teacher at Sunrise Mountain High School and proud CCEA Executive Board member. Right now, several other school districts in the state are also searching for superintendent. Our search should be nationwide to help our students succeed. With failed policies in the past administration, we need fresh new ideas in management skills. Being that we are the largest employer in the state and have about 300,000 students and their family, we also operate the 2nd largest transportation company in the state and the 3rd largest food supplier in the state. They should also understand how to manage a multi-billion-dollar budget. The decision to hire somebody should not be as simple as checking a quick box and making it expedient. We also need input on the next superintendent from parents, business leaders, municipalities. We serve educators, parent groups in the community.
It should not be a matter of how much money we spend on this search. You just wasted $250,000 getting rid of our lab superintendent. The person you named as this interim superintendent is not the right person for the job. She was the number 2 person from the failed superintendent that just left. She was in charge of academics and all his policy. She has failed the students, parents, teachers, and community with policies that were used in 2005 and failed then. Attendance policies, grading reform, minimum math, numerous canned curriculums. Where is the real growth? Are we going to just go with our past superintendent's motto that you can't see the growth? It's just there. We've run out of time to see the growth. We need a change. We need it now. We need to do a nationwide search to find the right superintendent and let the parents, educators, and the community be part of the process. The policy of this board states it's TD backroom deals and do not and do the right thing for our students, their families, and the community in search for a superintendent nationwide.
Ms. Binder, followed by Vicki Smith and Jessica Jones. Anna Binder for the record. Madam President, members of the board.
We spent $250,000 on that climate and culture survey. We haven't put it to use. It's been years since you guys have had a thorough discussion about hiring an independent attorney to protect yourself. A conversation that I haven't heard in all of this is if you guys are going to renew that search, because no matter what effort you put in, whether it's local or national, if you do not invest in getting yourselves a competent attorney, especially to negotiate that contract, we are going to get held hostage again in some way, shape, or form. We need a competent employment attorney, and we need a competent independent board attorney to protect everybody involved. You have to stop sliding by with bare minimum. When we complain about spending money, we're not spending money where it needs to be spent. So we're not having the illusion or illusions or disillusions of what is actually going on. We don't have someone who sits here in this room that can actually counsel you as a board. It is an attorney from the county that is here for the district, not you, not the decisions that you make. It is important that no matter what you do, incorporate into these conversations moving forward, giving yourself a competent attorney. Thank you.
To be clear, it is an attorney from the county who specifically serves employment law. Vicki Smith not only serves but has a specific expertise in employment law, and that's what they do for the county. Ms. Smith, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Trustee, for our deputy now. My name is Vicki Smith. I'm a licensed respiratory therapist and currently teach pre-med at Desert Pines High School. I've lived in the Las Vegas area for 28 years, right here in Linda Rossi's area. And I have taught everything from kindergarten to first grade to high school, teaching respiratory therapy and pre-med classes. I've worked in a variety of types of high schools and see the level of achievement they have had or not had. We need to make sure that we are at the highest level to graduate, not just 12 years of education and push out with a lack of reading and writing or math skills. There is overwhelming support in the district and the business community, legislative body, and partners to make a change in the way education is going. The staff members I have talked to agree that we need a change in leadership that will raise our academic standards, hold students accountable for their learning and actions, and give them the skills and education they need to be career ready for industry in post-secondary and workforce. And I can tell you, many of my students that I send out medicine, compared from where I came from in a CTA to where I'm in a traditional school, are not at that level, and they need to be. And I'm working very hard to get them to that level. We need a national school. Cost should not be an issue. Build transparency in the process. Allow for the community of participation as candidates are identified and advance through the process. Establish a minimum qualifications for all candidates must need to be considered for the position. But please look for candidates that achieve higher goals to drive our students and district into the future and into career jobs. All trustees need to give a voice to the newly appointed members of which has been silenced. Expertise is important, and that is why they are appointed. We owe it to our students, teachers, and community members to find the best superintendent that will be bold and visionary for our district and drive us into the next century with career-ready students. Thank you.
Ms. Jones, followed by Cam Lester and Victor Romero.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Larson Mitchell. For the record, my name is Jessica Jones. I teach kindergarten at Hickey Elementary School, the secretary of the Clark County Education Association. I'm here to urge you to please do a nationwide search. I honestly believe that right after our governor, the next most important position in the state is the superintendent of CCSD. The reason being that we educate 70% of the children in this state. We need to put a focus on making sure that our new superintendent is supported by our community and that there is stakeholder buy-in, because without buy-in, that person is going to be set up to fail. If that person fails, the ones who are going to suffer are CCSD students. I'm going to talk about my own kids for a second. I have two. One's in middle school, the other's in high school. Both of them have attended CCSD school the entire time. Both of them have had long-term substitutes multiple times throughout their school education. We have about 30,000 kids right now sitting in a classroom every single day without a licensed educator in front of them. We are doing them a disservice. They are children in this district are severely underperforming in core content areas. We need to make sure that we are looking for someone that can change policies, uplift these kids so that they are able to perform better academically. Earlier today, this board was sent a letter from different education groups, the business community, nonprofits, other prominent stakeholders that were requesting that this board conduct a national search of candidates, set minimum qualifications for a superintendent. This was also the consensus shared at public comments from two of your meetings from stakeholders that were attended on February 7th. Which is a work session, and then February 22nd was the board meeting. Multiple people had brought up that there needs to be transparency built into this process. And I don't believe that there's any harm in doing a nationwide search to find the best candidate to help our children. Again, I want to circle back to my first statement. It doesn't matter whoever is picked, if it ends up being an internal candidate or an external candidate. If you do not have community buy-in, stakeholder buy-in, this person is going to fail. They are going to fail before they even start. You guys, I listened in the back about making sure, that we select the right person. The candidate pool is small. Our treasurers from CCA, Kenny Belknap, brought that up earlier. We need to put a wide net out there so we are sure to get the best person possible to fill this position, because again, it is the most important position right after our governor. Thank you.
Followed by Victor Romero and Howard.
Good evening, esteemed members of CCSD Board of Trustees. My name is Cam Lester. I'm a high school social studies teacher and a proud member of CCA's exec board. Today, though, I come to you as a concerned, average constituent. The decisions you make today will not only affect our students, but our entire community. It cannot be understated how low the community perception of CCSD is currently. In 2018, CCSD had over 330,000 students enrolled. That number steadily decreased year after year under Jar and Brenda's leadership. This year, for the first time in nearly 20 years, is under 300,000 students. This decline is particularly alarming when juxtaposed with the booming population of the Vegas Valley. This speaks volumes about the pervasive distrust that has taken root within our district. Some of this poor perception is earned, while some is not. Either way, the facts are undeniable. Teacher vacancies has grown dramatically over the last 6 years. Currently, there are over 1,200 vacancies, which means 35,000 students and more do not have a full-time educator.
Frequently ranked as the second worst in the nation, CCSD has seen a decline in proficiency score almost every year in the last 6 years. This is a critical juncture, a possible turning point that is in the hands of you, trustees. You have a real opportunity to create change within CCSD, to show the community that you have heard them and are willing to listen. But this can only be done through a national search. While this can still involve local candidates, a short, quick, and local search will be seen as nothing more than an inside job, creating excuses to give power to the same people who have created this distrust. A rushed and small local search will be seen as corrupt and will taint the future of a chosen candidate whose appointment will always seem suspect. We must use this moment to show the Valley that we are better. We must show them that we are capable of change. The community demands a process that is transparent, comprehensive, and collaborative. Please, I ask you to listen to your voters. Listen to this, parents, students, teachers, and community members. We are all in alignment. We want to believe in CCSD again. That will require transparency, collaboration, and change. Today, that means we must have a national search. Thank you for your consideration.
Followed by Maureen Schaefer.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Interim Superintendent Dr. Brenda Larson-Mitchell, that can be attended with her for a while, but I apologize. I'm here in support of a national search. I see no harm in it. I think you feel the same way as Trustee Williams, which is almost neutral to it. You guys have in your minutes a search from the last time we did 2017 and 18. I'm going to go back further to 2013. That was a search where a national search was done. And what they did is they asked the community at that point, what do you want? And the community said at that time, through community survey, a majority said they wanted a local search. But at the same time, they did get very conflicting results. So if you do a search and get community input, make sure we clarify the language to get good input. Because at that time, they wanted somebody to, well, stay the course and someone have a new vision, something that cannot be done. And so when we look for a search, we also know that Clark County is unique. And I don't like using the word unique because, it means one of a kind. But we don't have one that has a large urban area, one with a high diversity, but also have rural communities. Closest we have, if you're looking at the top 10 or top 20, is Palm Beach County, the school district there. That's very different as well. They have an urban area with Boca Raton, West Palm Beach. But the urban area is does not have diversity, very affluent, and their rural communities is highly African American. It's very different than what we have. And so I'm a product of the Los Angeles Unified School District, the second largest. Madam President, to bring that up for a reason. So while you guys are doing your homework, I figured I'd do some too. I looked at what they did in 2021. They had an 8-week search just to try to get input before they did. They had 8 weeks of community input. And what they got was 28,569 community stakeholders input. We got 46, almost 47% of that came from parents. Now look at 2013, the majority came from employees. We didn't do a good job. And we visited 129 schools, and they have a lot more schools than we do to help out. But they also asked parents, nonprofit groups, and we've heard the business community who wants input too. There's no harm for doing that. And so we've also heard responses that if you want to take the time and have the new school, I mentioned last time I'm against that. Because what you're saying is that you're asking the interim to be here a minimum of 15 months before you get started. And you're going to have possibly 3 or a majority of this board brand new. And your first item is asking you for pick a superintendent. That's not good. I mean, there's a learning curve that comes in. So like I said, if you want to ask what community input is and what they want, I'm not against a national search, but with local options as well. I've had conversations during reading week, Blaine Christensen came to our school, Peter Huser, but we have. But if you want to ask the community what they want, ask them. My voice is one. If you want to get input to what they want, ask the community and move on. Madam President, that's my time.
Good evening, Madam President, and
fellow trustees. My name is Maureen Schaefer, and I serve as the executive director of the Council for Better Nevada. I had prepared remarks, and as you can see, I've read them a few times because many of them were already stated by the other folks who came up to the dais, and quite honestly, many of you said so many things that were thoughtful. I didn't need to say them. So let me just say that our group signed on to the letter that you all received, and we believe in proceeding with a national search. And from a business perspective, and I say a business perspective, with the caveat that our group over the last almost 20 years has had directors that are from labor and philanthropy and yes, business. So we're a collection of members from our community. And so it's a best practice in general with organizations to pass the net wide. And in this case, and I look at you, and this is the first time I've ever seen you or met you or heard of you. When you have a star on the inside, you want to go as far and wide, because if you know in your heart that you knowing, as I say, that this is the person, you want to protect them for their well-being and the organization's well-being as you do a search from a process perspective. So I say that just as we in our group think about things as leaders. The second thing I'm going to say is, gosh, leadership's hard, isn't it, guys? It's really hard. I don't know how you guys keep coming and doing this, Lola. This stuff is really hard. And when you know you're right, we're still against you. So I wanna commend you. I want to applaud you. And just say thank you, because it's really thankless. And to that end, we want to support you. I hope our organization, when we participated in this in the past, was never one of those groups that perpetrated undue influence, because we all belong to each other. And these kids are all of our kids, every single one of them. And when they grow up and they move on and they get jobs, it's our economy, for better or for worse. For better or for worse, we're all in this together. And so as we move forward, and you look at the job, you look amazing. I wish I had your skin. But in all honesty, guys, this is very serious. It's $3 billion that could be going to many other places that we can't afford to fund. Transportation, healthcare.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Utilizing skincare as a requirement. Followed by things that you were in, I did not capture you earlier.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Annette Magnus, and I'm here tonight to speak in favor of a national search that absolutely should include internal candidates. I'm a second-generation Nevadan and Clark County School District graduate and a proud daughter of a CCSD employee. I've been in and around this district for all of the people that you have mentioned previously as superintendents. There have always been problems in this district, even when I was in the school. But the problems have been amplified the past few years at the expense of our students and our educators, in large part because of this board and your inability to function in government. We elect and appoint you all to be our voices on this board, but we don't elect you to have you lecture us and to think that you know better than we do or talk down to us as some of you did tonight. Your biggest responsibility is the outcome of our kids and listening to the taxpayers of this community. I am so tired of hearing the excuses from this body as to why things are hard or complicated. The community isn't asking for anything other than transparency and a fair and open process. If there is a high quality candidate in the state, then they can participate in the process just like everyone else, like a normal job search.
If the community doesn't like the candidate that's chosen over time, we will hold you all accountable. That's your job. That's how all of this works. This should not be this hard. Do a search and be transparent, and that's all we're asking. It's that simple. The saddest part of all of this is I've made these exact comments in this very room time and time and time again. And yet here we are again tonight. Thank you.
Do your lobbies or your guests here. This amendment should go to Antonio. Well, or Ratchet, Palacio. It's beautiful. We'll have we got the convention and Mr. Bayless comes on. I'll have Brian back after. And followed by Ms. Ford. And then Danielle.
Good evening. My name is Brian Walker. I'm the Senior Vice President of Retail Association. Short, I do believe that you've heard of those things. What I would say is I do think you have a false choice in front of you. Would not want to be a superintendent candidate with the next superintendent. Chance to get the community to buy into. I think it has been pointed out that your current interim superintendent is bringing a lot of perceived baggage from her process. And until you can answer those questions, it does not matter what your idea is. I think it might even be more than just the trustee district use superintendent. But I do think the fact that it is even perceived that the decision has already been made is what is actually causing your trust. It's interesting, if you look at the back of documents for two, we talk about going on, listening to it, how you're approaching your interactions with the community. We've also heard from the president several times, I reiterate, remind the other colleagues on the dais that interacting with people who are talking in public comment or people responding to agenda items, and yet 3 different times this evening, she has chosen to respond to those people as they were walking. None of these actions constitute a board that is looking or willing or has expressed an interest in order to gain the trust of the community. We will absolutely, when we conduct a national search, or whether you take an internal candidate or you look at statewide, we will absolutely be back here clearer than any other. I think when you take a look at the alternative of where we would rather be is having you guys have chose a superintendent 6 years ago that was able to unify this board of work under this board, be held accountable to this board, so that you could explain to the community what that goal is. How Trustee Cavazos' request had an agenda item violated and did not fit into what the vision of the community was or what the needs of the student progress is going to be. And it's because you consistently tell us we don't need to explain to the community what we are doing. You need to just go along with it. You need to understand that you're not in our private briefings. There is no possible way you as a community member or someone not on this board possibly understand this. And I got to tell you that I believe is what the community is finding disrespectful and why the community fails every single time to back up this board anytime we make it. And if that's what's supposed to be your role as a board, is to actually have the community's back and implement what they believe and what their vision is, and you consistently be great within it. You should stop that.
Followed by Danielle.
Thank you. Former trustee Danielle Ford, for the record, the board could do a courtesy poll of the new non-voting trustees to find out how they would vote if you so wished. If you're unsure what that looks like, it's what Marianne Miller used to do to us in closed sessions. We're not legally allowed to vote.
I personally do not trust the national search process because every single time that CCSD has done one, CCSD hired a superintendent who was trained through programs owned by corporate billionaires that are in the business of privatizing school districts. However, the correct decision is to hire a search firm to conduct a nationwide search that includes local and internal candidates, because that is inarguably what at least 90% of the community wants. So assuming that that's the route this board is going to go, then the next matter of business should be to make sure that the board doesn't run into the same problems with the new superintendent that the last national search brought us, Superintendent Jara. For instance, the contracts for superintendent candidates should be publicized before voting happens so that the community can weigh in on them. The board should first determine contract details, specifically what salary and perks they'd like to offer a superintendent. Jara was hired, and then the board received his contract and found out what his salary, benefits, and perks would be, and whether or not those perks included Pelotons. There should be a plan to ensure a new superintendent will understand and implement the reorg law, which applies only to CCSD, since the former superintendent blatantly ignored it and caused problems for the board with every single legislative body. The board should clarify any evergreen clause so that the board is not surprised by a superintendent's false claim that their contract had automatically been auto-renewed for 2 extra years and then waste 6 months of the board's time. The board should predetermine the length of employment before interviewing any candidates. It should not be any longer than 2 years so that the new board has the ability to determine whether they want to extend the superintendent's contract or start a new hiring process. You should make sure that candidates are okay with a termination date like that. In the future, it would be helpful to clarify any conflicts of interest for the superintendent. For instance, if the superintendent were to sue the board for hostile working conditions, that superintendent should not be able to hire a law firm to represent him that before donated to Trustee Evelyn Garcia Morales' campaign 3 years earlier, which was Haley Kennedy. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Oliver. Thank you, followed by Ms. Henry, President, and yours.
I am Danielle Unger. I have been working in Title I elementary schools the last 5 years. And we are concerned and we fear that we're going to get an unqualified superintendent. There's a fear. And the cost of a search keeps getting brought up. But the cost of getting this wrong is going to be way more than any amount you save on a quick, easy, expedient search. And local people have connections, political connections, and that people are immediately not going to trust unless we have a national search. And the teachers, everyone here came here united in that we want a national search. And we demand in the 5th largest school district what really should be a standard for finding the most qualified candidates, transparency in that selection process, so that all the stakeholders can buy in and have confidence in the decision that is made. And we want minimum qualifications for these candidates to ensure that only the best and the brightest lead our schools and our community. It's clear that these demands are really not only just necessary and reasonable. I don't understand how anyone would be against those fundamental principles of accountability and excellence. Who's going to oppose transparency in leadership unless there's something to hide? Who's going to reject the notion of setting a minimum bar for qualifications unless they're content with mediocrity? And who's going to disregard the importance of the community being involved in this decision? So I hope you got all of the board members listen to the community today. Everyone here has been asking for a national search. There's a consensus from everyone you've heard today, and I hope that we get that search. Thank you.
Surveillance for you. Program. No Antonio, Henry, Monte. Students, what do you have here? I just want to note, I acknowledge that it's maybe your first time with on our board, and just I ask for the future, just submit this to we want to make sure that you know the process and if you need us in the future, you. Thank you. So please get your input.
Okay, my name is Monte Morris. I represent the company. And we're political activists in the community. So all I came here today is say we don't need no national service. Y'all want something done, ask the community. Come talk to the community. We need a superintendent from the community. We don't need no money that y'all getting to sit up there for the fence and all that, like your head. And we don't need all that. We need somebody from the community. And that's what's going to help these kids. Because y'all obviously not doing it. It's been going on for the last 30, 40, 50 years. It's going to keep going the same way. So that's all I want to say. Select part of the community. Not a Methodist or the community. You need a superintendent, I'm right here. I think I take that on. Uncle Monte here, I'm here for all the kids. I love them. That's all I want to
do. I'll leave that in public comments. I'm gonna go back to the queue. Trustee Cavazos, your first in the queue. There you are. Okay.
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. I'm just going to do my follow-up question to Trustee Brooks's extensive comments earlier, and then I'll jump back into the queue with my other comments. I just wanted to clarify, I don't know if I got this correct. Trustee Brooks, when you were talking about as far as the process and the possible candidates, I wasn't sure if you said that people who were formerly in the district and then had left the district, and that if they applied, that they would not be hired. I think I might have gotten that wrong.
Thank you, Madam President. I said certainly we can't hire everybody that actually left the district. So some people by default are going to not get the job and they will not be happy about it.
Okay, all right. That makes sense. Of course, we can't hire everyone. We're just trying to hire one superintendent. But thank you for clarifying that. I wasn't sure what you had said. Thank you, President Garcia Morales, and I'll defer to the other colleagues.
Thank you. I want to give Trustee Zamora a chance to contribute to the top of the presentation or some of the remarks. Or Trustee Williams, Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just want to, say that when we speak about the national search, we're not just narrowing it down to outside folks, that would include local people being able to apply to this position, correct?
What is specific in the motion for said items? Some things if there's an appetite and motion for something like that, you can absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. That's all the questions I have right now.
Thank you. Trustee Williams.
I don't have any questions right now, thank you.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, we'll continue discussion and thank you for entertaining any particular questions. Certainly want to continue the discussion. So the next steps and then of course entertaining motion. After everyone again, Trustee Johnson.
The conversation's been really invigorating, and I appreciate everybody sharing thoughts. And I continue to think, somebody said this earlier, we created a false choice to some extent. I think when we think about what we're looking for, we're ultimately just trying to create the most diverse candidate pool possible. So wherever that comes from, I think we're also, and this is just my opinion, I think we want each one of those diverse candidates to go through a rigorous interview process. I think we want to have collected input from all stakeholders that are available. I think we want to have clarity about the qualities that we're seeking. So clarity meaning clarity from 11 of us, and then clarity from our community stakeholders, and then have the most timely process possible with the thought that the outcome is the most important versus trying to juggle 2 or 3 things at a time. So I think we have to be willing to sacrifice some of our other commitments, because the most important commitment is finding the best, most qualified person. And so I think while we keep talking about like, should be national, should be state, local only, why don't we just talk about how do we build the most diverse pool possible, knowing what we're clear on our outcomes, and then from that, have that, the people go through a rigorous process. And then that doesn't matter. And yes, it will have to invest some money and time. So there'll be things that we invest regardless. So I just don't want us to try to make a false choice in terms of one or the other. It's not binary. We have the opportunity to invest the most, to think about what are we trying to get? We're trying to get the best possible candidate. How do you find that? We have the largest pool of people who are interested, and we are clear on what we are seeking. And I don't know that we actually talked about what we are seeking. And so it's going to be hard to determine if that person is sitting, and I put this right now, if that person is sitting in the 89106 zip code, or if that person is sitting in Washington, D.C. We don't know, because I haven't heard this. Maybe we've done this at some segments.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson. Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson. I don't see anybody in the queue, so I am going to build off of what Trustee Johnson just said. It's clear that we need to hire a search firm. It's clear that we should front load the process with broad community feedback to ensure that we're choosing a path everyone wants. I think it's a little bit less clear that we need to determine if this person is local or national now. I think we actually need somebody to help us through the process. So that I'd like to make a motion to move forward with an RFP process for a search firm and build in front loading that process with broad community feedback.
I'll second.
Thank you, colleagues. I want to recognize Trustee Brooks' motion, second by Trustee, I believe that is Williams.
Yes, Madam President.
Thank you. And I want to acknowledge that we have a motion on the floor, and at the same time, we have members who are in the queue at this time, and I want to acknowledge them, to give them an opportunity to add. After Trustee Wisdom Adams, I will call Trustee Watson first.
Thank you, Madam President. I was just wanting to make sure that everyone knows that if you do a national search, that includes the local and state. That is my intention. You cannot do a national search without including the local program works. That just blows my mind. And I just want to make sure that all stakeholders have an opportunity to participate in the process, and that does involve all the community, education community. So I just wanted to make that. Thank you.
Very interesting, Watson. Trustee Wisdom Adams, I see you're next in the queue.
Thank you, Madam President. Trustee Brooks, can you restate the first one? I wrote down front load with broad community input, but what was your first comment?
Trustee Wisdom Adams, Trustee Brooks. Go ahead, Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. The motion was to engage in the RFP process, to get a search firm to help guide us through this. And it would start by them engaging the broader community to determine if they want to limit it to local or national.
Thank you, Madam President, for that clarity. And then I have one more clarification question, that the statement was an RFP for a search firm, so that could be executive search firm or one that's based just solely on educational individuals. Is that correct?
I think that we can make this, the RFP will lay out specifically what we're seeking. That may be part of the next step, which will be like things within the RFP process.
Thank you, Madam President, for the clarity.
Trustee Sparsa and trustee Cavazos, after those are the members. We will again offer the vote, sending that offer to just versus Robin and I've already, we're ready to call the vote. It's calling you to chime in, please, trustees versus Robin. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. So I want to clarify because I don't want the community to perceive that something's going to happen after the fact. So we're asking the motion to put in for a search form for the RFP process. Will that include, or could it be amended that we are going to define tonight what kind of search that would be? Because that is agendized, whether it's national or internal. So I just wanted to ask that question up front. And then I have a follow-up comment regarding national data for superintendents national.
Trustees versus Robin, question to your question. Do you mean whether the search firm will be local or national?
The search process itself as agendized states whether we would have a determination between national or internal. So that's why I'm asking if that search is going to be a national process in addition to us putting out an RFP for a search firm to do it.
I believe the motion was to conduct an RFP search that's inclusive of, forgive me, I don't want to misspeak. Trustee Brooks, can you please restate your motion?
Thank you, Madam President. The intent of the motion is to make sure that we're respectful of broad community feedback. So the RFP process would not be determining whether or not it's national or local search. That would happen after the broader community gave their feedback.
To be clear, Trustee Brooks said it is a search firm. We're looking for some search firm that will help us engage in broad community feedback. So, Trustee Brooks, are you on cue?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, the first step of the process prior to them doing anything else is getting community feedback and ensuring that all voices are represented and are moving forward.
Thank you. Trustee Sparks, you had another question?
Just making sure that the motion does clarify that and state it clearly. I'd like that to be corrected, but I do want to share some data, give people some hope. According to looking at some of the Zippy's data, because I'm always Googling and looking and researching before I did my homework, President. There are currently over 7,292 school superintendents currently employed in the US. So keep hope alive that we could definitely cast that net and see what is available. There are, within the school superintendents, 72% are likely to work in educational companies in comparison to private companies. So I think, again, we just need to honor what was said tonight from the community, whether it's national and internal. Thank you.
Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, President Garcia-Moraz. I think that Trustee Brooks has clarified with her last statements, because I believe the first time she stated the motion was different from the second time she stated the motion, but I think she's clarified it now, but that it is to basically go forward with an RFP for a search firm, but that it is not going to it's not going to add the additional determination of deciding whether it's local or national, but that it is going to basically be inclusive. I don't know where you
Be abundantly clear. We're going to turn it over to Trustee Brooks so she can restate.
All right, thank you.
At least once this motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. The motion is to engage in the RFP process to find a search firm who front loads the process, which means they're going to do it first, with broad community feedback, which will help us determine the path. So if the broad community feedback comes back and says, hey, we want fresh, shiny new things, then we're going to listen to them. If they say we don't, we're going to listen to them. That's the intent.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. Okay, colleagues. we're gonna go ahead and we have a motion on the floor by trustee Brooks and second by trustee Williams. Please, I want to call. Thank you. Please cast your vote. Trustee Zamora.
Aye.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. For you. Yeah, this is the second.
I'm going to vote yes, and
Just please cast your vote.
yes, with asking for transparency. Thank you.
Cast your vote. Thank you. Go ahead. Colleagues, that motion passes 7-0. Thank you for the dialogue and for your attention to this detail. Now I'm going to move on to item 3.01. 2.02. This is not an action item. Professional learning from the Council of Great City Schools. Discussion regarding the Council of Great City School student outcomes focused governance framework and the next step pursuant to professional services agreement assisting with member district governance. Contact. However, I also believe that they are. We have asked for the council to participate in this presentation of reference material 2.02. Before I turn it over to AJ, who is on the line, I want to remind colleagues that this information before you is a result of work that we did to prepare for the community listening plans. This item was discussed and brought to the departure of the superintendent, and before our decision for today's decision. And I have to thank the council for their support with this particular aspect of our work regarding the community listening plan. We have asked for this back in when we engaged in this work back again. Here, the candidate for the summary of collective feedback we have provided our assignment in the community. Okay, are you online?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please go over the reference material, the community listening plan, and then turn it over to colleagues for discussion.
Absolutely. And so, as you just heard, this is the result of listening from you all. What are characteristics of the community listening that are important for all? I'll go through it quickly, but then certainly any questions you have about it. Quality over the idea that one of the university laws was really important in listening and inclusive listening, and in that takes a little bit more time and effort, then you would prefer to do that. That something that's not multiple trustees or as we mentioned the listening here was that there should be when listening is happening, that it's going to be it should involve multiple folks so that there's some accountability, that people are sharing the same message, communicating the same thing, and that people are going to patients outside of just your own patient, so that each board member is being responsible for listening and not just being one part of it. Consistency. There's a desire that the same message, same listening be afforded all around the county. That some part of the county get some version, some part of the accessibility. There should be both virtual opportunities and in-person opportunities, so that you afford maximum potential for people to participate. Transparency. The more ethical listening is completed, the results of the listening should be made available back. That it's important that folks understand what you heard from them, and to be honest, to be also transparent about how you use what you heard. That that feedback loop. Utilize feedback from for multiple purposes. That ideally the listening should be able to support or discernment and decision making beyond just the collection of involved artifacts. Ideally, more whole community members back together to ask the question multiple times, short amount of time, and then active listening. The purpose of the listening is for the community to be heard, not for board members. And so this is an opportunity for board members to be a certain of the listening capture the result. So what the purpose of all is to take the key principles that you looked up about what does authentic and effective listening look like, and build out a listening plan based on this. Right now, again, making you feedback, we're thinking that's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 months worth of listening that will take place. There's a desire to have in-person sessions that are taking place in many different places. Right now, like at least 14 different that you're having in the Trustee district over the course of multiple months. You want to ensure that you have them in different towns, not just in larger towns. And then you want to make sure it's actually all of it, especially you all want to ensure that there is a listening session taking place no more than 25 minutes away from people, regardless of where. In this process, that you want at least 2 recommend. The next critical part of this process, you all have to tell us. We certainly can't tell you. You have to tell us that have created a comprehensive plan of that. So it's easy and transparent to see are they getting some of the groups that you have heard that you go out that part of that beginning, you all communicate with us. You are all where all the places that take place, and then you will help relay all that and try to help build that into larger plan to make sure that all of that occurs. Some areas that you particularly highlight, definitely do with your families, definitely some like this. Important to you that you sleep in a topic, so not just in person opportunities, or have a survey so that people can fill out. And then finally, there's some key discussion points of considerations, things that I really understand even so that you can talk capability and students. And so I'm going to read off these questions. Really hoping to care and how things can you all respond to these. The first is, does meet the board's expectation if what I described it doesn't meet your definition of authentic and deep community listening, then tonight is the time you think what is this the such that this process can qualify as being authentic. If the board likes to a specific question regarding this question search, it would be for and that's again a decision you all need to make. It doesn't sound like this decision, but it needs to be. The list of organization groups for community listening is that list complete. Again, we can tell you listen to if that's in you for us. So if you look at that list, it's incomplete. Now the time we communicate that. Are all of the listed groups part of the Clark community? Are any of the groups not talking to you? Is that you need to make this about the things you are doing, and you all, of course, you find who needs to be done. But one of the things we know is, are they working on community of culture? And so, what is your rationale? So, for example, people who live in Alaska, so it might not make sense for you to kind of go to Alaska and there. So, if you saw that on the list, you're really curious about that. Why are you doing that? That doesn't seem like it. So that's the answer to it. Are you all listening to the folks who you don't support? So why? And then finally, how should engagement and outreach ensure that the citizens focus on community voices? Like what specifically needs to make sure the community voices are. So those are the areas of discussion that you want to get more from Stephen. So I can certainly be responsible for the input you have, but also a lot of what I'm doing right now is to be in note-taking mode so that we can make sure that we can back this so that we can look at video monitor that will listen.
Thank you, Jay. Wonderful this body. Ask noting to decommunicate that the our office was present, this for the point. An item that we should discuss, we're continuing further from the council is something. And the other item colleagues would like to seek your inputs and support set up after this meeting to receive some volunteers, volunteers to assist being this work forward. I'd like to know from my colleagues whether this is something what type of alignment do we disagree between this work, the work that we just agreed to, and the community engagement for potential search for the search process, and our next superintendent is the other item here that I'm missing on. But and of course the culture requirements. One point the culture requirements was requested to be an annual survey sent out to staff. Again, I'm asking for some help with alignment with all of these items so that your boundaries and I entertain that discussion as well.
I'm trying to understand why we have to, the things happen simultaneously. I guess thinking about the impact and the weight of going through community listening to do a superintendent search. Will we have the capacity to do both of those things simultaneously and well? So what's the harm in putting this process in pause so we get farther down the line with some clarity around our superintendents? Because I want to understand it before we decide we have to produce. Is there a reason that we have to do this now versus pausing doing our one job and then picking the second job back up?
Thank you, Trustee Johnson, and I'll allow you to chime in. We're on the driver's seat. We're in the driver's seat. This the board chooses to do either pause or move forward and make this work. I see your points and I think they're valid. And certainly want to remind everyone that we're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, you made one of those points out. The first access. You all decided to do it. So that's for supportive. That being said, I think it'd be deeply problematic to hire a superintendent without knowing what it is you want to accomplish. Because knowing what the goals are should deeply inform who is actually most qualified to help you achieve said goals. And so, if I want to go around marine biology, if that's the deepest desire of the community, and we wind up setting a goal around that, it would be useful to know that in advance of selecting a superintendent, because I'd probably be looking for competency in that area and searching for something. So it is for this reason, clear about what the community's vision is first, and match. Don't hire somebody and see whether or not they match the community's vision.
Thank you. Council, do you have anything else?
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. AJ, I have a question. Could we not embed our superintendent questions into the questions that we bring out into the community, so that not only are we asking for goals, but we're also asking for what they're looking for in a superintendent search, almost like killing two birds with one stone?
Yeah, we've had several boards that situation right now, where they're starting their goal set process, and they found themselves for a search. And some boards have chosen to do this first search thing, but other boards have chosen concurrently exactly.
President Garcia Morales, I think that is a pathway forward for us. It would make it so that not only are we asking for the goals of the community, we're also asking for whom they would like to lead us through those goals. And I just think that would be very transparent in what they were stating, and what Ed Gonzalez added in his public comment about asking the community what they want. I feel like I'm always putting him when he does public comment just to annoy him, but I'm just stating that that I think it's a really good idea, and I think that's a pathway forward for us, and I would like to assist.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. And we'll be mindful of just approved an RFP of a community engagement process search to confirm support us with the community engagement process. How we prioritize these items, part of discussion with the one, they're different process. And at least
Thank you, Madam President. Just to respond to Trustee Johnson, I agree with what AJ said. We're missing an opportunity to do the alignment. So I think that our questions are going to be answered through community engagement, and not to repeat what Trustee Yvonne said, but we can in the ninth grade. And I think that it is a perfect time for us to do both community student outcomes, and I think that kind of clarity we need for the person that we are watching. So that's like here if she would see fit, it's the right time for the alignment to happen. And to reply to setting for my recommendation, had I said at the time that his staff was working on so we're just going to be going back to progress and then remember. Lastly, this AJ that you talked about in the document, the other thing that I would add would be
our executive branch. I don't know if I saw it. I did see the link branch asked. But I don't know if the executive branch is see it on there. And that would include our governor, our state, and somebody on his team.
Thank you very much. Trustees Adams, Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple questions. One is there a way to protect the community for a kind of level set what the expectations are before they go into these listening sessions so they're here to engage and be addressed?
It's part of what you all will support you create some scripts so that you'll be all asking some questions, sharing some information countywide. Similarly, while we're doing that together, other boards have, if there additional information that we can essentially as a pre-read to communities. They have something in their hands that helps contextualize the conversation. So when we get to the building out your script, if that's
Thank you. I do think that people do prefer to be prepared for this conversation, so we can make sure that's part of it. And then, what are options for preventing duplication responses to ensure that all voices have equal representation and they're reflected in this?
Want to be able to be really aggressive about ensuring that you need to solicit a lot more information, both during your surveys and during your in-person sessions. So what it really comes down to is, data exercise of how you collect enough information to be able to answer the question. You need to understand what your student understand. So for example, people listening, but you don't solicit the name and demographic information, associations of the people you're listening from, will have no way later on to tag that specific listening and to be able to make that analysis. So if that's something that's important, we can certainly make that happen. That is but then just there's a much higher level through that goes into data collection to make that to be able to provide that for you. But is that responsive to you?
It is definitely is something that that does occur here in Clark County from time to time. So it is important to make sure that there is integrity and making sure that the responses are representative of the broader community versus people going to multiple meetings and giving the same opinion, which I know has happened.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. Ensuring it's not even ensuring that we hear from all of the community, especially Trustee Gavassos.
Thank you, Madam President. So without repeating everything that my colleagues have said, I do want to say that I holding high regard what Trustee Johnson and Trustee Guzman brought up. Possibly we need to kind of commingle or streamline this process in some way. But I want to ask AJ a question about this. I know that recently, as part of our process and what we're doing, that Trustee Brooks and our board liaison, Mr. Caruso, were able to attend a workshop in Kentucky. I was wondering if some of the material they brought back, if that is going to be something that would be able to help us with this process immediately that can be presented to them as far as an effort to move forward. Especially since we're in a very, as Trustee Johnson said, it's really going to be difficult with these two processes going on at the same time. So I was wondering if that workshop material would be helping us. I guess I'm asking AJ this.
Fair person already know. But yes, if you all need helpful, we can absolutely provide you a summary of what was covered in those workshops. But a lot of it is going to be reflective of what we've shared with you, because materials from our workshops and materials is almost entirely the exact same material. So yes, we can share them with you, but a lot of it course discussion.
Go ahead, Mr. Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, AJ, for responding. I'm kind of surprised to hear that it's gonna be I can't say that word. It's gonna be a duplicate of the material that we're already going through because I thought the purpose of the workshop is, we're the drivers of this, as our president said. So I thought the purpose of sending to that workshop was to bring them back to give us further instruction, not that it was going to be a duplicate, but thank you. I can follow up with that president later on. Okay, fine, maybe.
Yeah, so the benefit of the in-person sessions is that you get to go in much deeper with specific examples from colleagues from different districts all across the country. And so while the materials are the same, when we have a conversation with you all only have the benefit of the experiences from Clark County. When you all attend a national workshop, you have the benefit of going over this material in much more depth and experiences from colleagues around the country. That part I can't. But the materials is everything. But the depth, and kind of not going through materials, I don't know where to.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Mr. Ellison. And speaking of attending international conferences, so for the record that there will be ILS attending the Council of City Schools Legislative Conference. That always remains a place to zoom out and interface with colleagues from across the country who are in urban school districts. So I'm looking forward to our participation. They're going to be leadership. Trustees Worksession.
So question before I go into some thoughts and maybe trying to bring some of our thinking together, best thinking for maybe how to move forward. What typically is the RFP timeline? This that we just decided to do an RFP.
I'm reluctant to accept whatever we separate. Is your point then you think there?
The reason maybe it would be helpful to know that question is important because if we're going to do the two at the same time, my thinking is having AJ and perhaps representation from potentially a future firm that we would select. And then, of course, having, I'm going to say, another possibility, and I don't know if this is something, it does task our individuals here within the district, but we do have an amazing family engagement division. And I think we should be working smarter, not harder, in tasking and having conversations, looping them in, because they already have trusted relationships in our community in various areas of the family, and including the rural inclusive community. So is there a possibility to include them as well with those relationships that are already established? And then the last two things I'll say is I think I want to be clear on including, it was mentioned earlier, communities that often voiceless and maybe most marginalized. I'm concerned, I want to make sure that we, let's say maybe we have some individuals on our board that might have and be willing to go and seek those and that input. I think we need to listen to that. It's not just what we're doing well, it's what we're not doing. And of course, we'll look at all of that The other thing that I'm asking for us to consider, President Morales, is what data do we have? Like we talked about this culture and climate survey, many of us have reviewed it, but what other types of data? Can we just be front loaded with before we go out and have these conversations? And then lastly, I am absolutely all in to support and volunteer whatever committee is going to do this work.
Thank you, Trustees Worksession. So the counters giving things on the list, and there's a specific response on it. Sure.
Would we be able to get data front loaded? Would we be able to our already amazing family engagement? They have those relationships established.
From the principle that we provide is we did the PCG culture survey after we provided direction to superintendent, provided guidance to help us after we seconded this board we provide this direction and they community their community. This work is a little bit different from what I've heard. There's parallels, however, although things that are not similar at all because the community the council is this word specific. AJ?
Yeah, you absolutely when it's more listening that needs to happen is really a child of your staff, your educators, your principals, your support. And then listening that needs to happen is really a child. Most listening needs to happen really needs to happen. When it comes to teaching and representation, our fellowship is absolutely this is something that the board should not put anyone, whether it's staff or consultants, certainly not us, that the board, when it comes to listening to the community's vision, that our coaching is not to put anyone between the board and your constituents. That it is cumbersome because it's putting a lot of like fortune into work that only has to be done once every 3 to 5 years. So it's not that constant. But it is absolutely appreciated that you all be hearing directly from your constituents, not through the filter of us, not through the filter of the other consultants, not through the filter of staff, or this specific.
Thank you, AJ. You Trustees Worksession. Clarify.
That's not what I intended to be interpreted, AJ. What I'm saying is that we already have centers and individuals that have those relationships. It would be our work to go and listen to the community, but they would be the ones to advertise, to have them come, and we would be the ones to listen.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to the extent that there are relationships like that, we absolutely encourage you to leverage those, whether those are community partnerships, whether that's with your labor groups, like whoever that you have relationships, if you leverage those to help bring more people into the conversation, it is absolutely positive.
Trustee Johnson?
The only thing I wanted to add is I forgot to volunteer, so I'd like to volunteer if possible.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson. Very good, colleagues. I don't see any other members in the queue. Trustees Moore, Trustee Williams, would like to chime in?
No, I'm okay. Thank you, Madam President. I do have a few things. To clarify, it was a trustee and our board liaison that attended this training. I am wondering if there's going to be opportunities for other board members that, you know, are newer and kind of will have more time on the board to also take and participate in those sessions.
Thank you, Trustee.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Cora. I believe, I want to just give the Trustee Brooks an opportunity to chime in because she brought this to my attention. And I think there is Trustee Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. So one thing I did observe is there were boards that actually had 2 members, and they seem to pair the members with experience levels. So some of them had more experience with a new member. I think that model really helps. I wish that was something that the board had done because I think it would be very useful.
Thank you. Trustee Zamora, did you have any other to say? Thank you for your insights and just the fact that this cohort exists. Invitations are sent to board and based on members of the community. So is something to consider. Can you provide us additional insight? Next, will be taking candidates applications.
We begin those cohorts each year in February. However, if there is additional need where folks feel like there would be a lot of value from building relationships with colleagues around the country, there have been requests, and we have paired board members up with essentially mentor board members from other states. Sometimes it's helpful to have a mentor on your own board in your own context, and sometimes it's helpful to have a mentor from a completely different context who's outside of political maybe. And so if that's something that is beneficial for all, that is something to try to pass.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have anything else?
I do. Thank you, Madam President. The other thing that I wanted to make a comment about is on the accessibility. I really appreciate that we're talking about Zoom and virtual session options. One thing that I think about is our last AZAC joint meeting where we talked about language access. So just making sure that, yes, we have interpreters, but also have opportunities to connect with, just different constituents who might speak a different language. And if a trustee can't speak that language, they should be open to that because I think it builds that communication and that trust. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. We have Trustee Velazquez and Trustee Zamora, and I acknowledge the need for the municipal sessions. I believe they have not been fully reflective in this review, but it is on accessibility. The language accessibility. Thank you. Trustee Velazquez.
Thank you, Madam President. AJ and Trustee Brooks' comment and Trustee Zamar's question. So if I understood you correctly, AJ, you were saying that the in-person experience, of course, is always more valuable to most of us. So these invitations, these workshops are received as they're available and sent, and then is it the board president that then selects who will go on these workshops?
So we email out these opportunities again. We start every year. When we email that out, we typically email that out to whoever involved select representatives. And then it's board members' job to share that with all board members in places like coaching, relationship, and to send that out as well. To be mindful of invitations out in October. And so we will send out invitations this October with a deadline first for cohorts to start. So we'll do the same thing next year, but you all should receive that information. And I can't think of any districts who share is the person who's making that decision. Certainly each district is welcome to decide how that's determined. In most places, what we observe is board members apply or they don't. In fact, we've had board members apply the district, board determined that it did not have enough money to cover it, and the board members just paid for it themselves because they were so things. That's the only thing I've seen truly been a limitation since the district have resources. But in most places, it is more less a matter of resources, a matter of the desire.
Okay, thank you so much, AJ. I appreciate that elaboration. So if I could follow up on that just real quick, President Christie Morales, I might have missed something, maybe I just emailed the first time. But the first time I heard about Trustee Brooks and our board liaison going to Kentucky for this trip is when we received the message. Did we receive a prior message asking about availability or for us to apply for that? Because if we did, I missed it. In other words, I'm asking how were they chosen to go on this? I understand what AJ is saying, but I'm just wondering how this came about. If I did miss something, I apologize. That's me. Not doing additional follow-ups. Do additional for council or any type of business. I will own that and before we each other. Oh, that was fine. And also too, was the cost of that workshop included in our contract? Just I believe you asked the question, I would love to answer. However, this for us to talk about items for us workshops. So there's appetite for you to learn more than one engage. Absolutely. Absolutely. Which should be great to addition to our district. Okay, that would be fine. Thank you. Let's see, colleagues, I just want to make one note there. There are some colleagues who would like to thank you for willingness to raise your hand and participate in arguments. Steps. However, whatever the timing looks like, I appreciate that. I do want to just know for the record. Given this last week, we have maybe a season member and your member. I want to make sure whatever committee or group that's together for this work and diverse non-voting members, new members, and members, the season members, which is that it's something that is so trustee Satori. I just want to say thank you for your willingness to raise your hand. Appreciate it. Awesome. Okay. All right. BJ, I don't believe we have any other discussion.
Thank you, Madam. You have a blessed day.
Thank you. Good night. This is not an action item, but we have we're going to move right on to the next mission, which is comment on non-action items not listed in the agenda. That I have memorized. Great. All right. 3.01 public comment items on this agenda. Before I open this item, there's anybody in the audience who wants to be able to earn speak on this item. Please do so. Thank you. We'll begin with the individuals to speak for the minutes. All right, we've got advance Sequoia Morris. Sequoia will have Mr. Baylor. He's over here. Followed by Jim Frazee, and Dr. Beeman.
Hi. Here's the investigations there with me. So first time Madam Vice President Donna for I'm supporting this the mother and the North Las Vegas community. And I just want you to see your faces. I learned a lot about you guys via internet, and it's just knowing that everyone is
really get into the problem of the new superintendent that we need to put in order, but that's why I'm here. But it gave me some solace to hear you guys talking and trying to solve problems together. So I do appreciate it. But I'm here to discuss the problem in bullying within the county and just in Nevada since I relocated from California. I see like, you know, Nevada means home on every single license plate from the single time I'm thinking about my daughter for education here in Nevada. It's always been a something that keeps her away, which is, you know, there's like things like the classroom or the inability of the teachers to remain focused and supervising the kids at school. So I had a big thing that I was saying, very nervous, it's kind of intimidating, but basically I went, when I first arrived here, I went to Clark County. It was several things that ended up happening at our school, and I just like sometimes because the safety of our children is number one. We're sitting here and we're talking about a lot of different things, but I think with parents, and the reason why kids can't show up is because of the stabilization within their home, and then the stabilization in how they feel safe at school. So for me and my family, you know, I am a homeschooler. That's the reason why I was looking for the superintendent to turn in my papers, and I didn't know where to go. And then that unfolded to a lot of different things, and it kind of revealed to me so many parents that actually came to my house and told me that they were actually having problems with bullying as well. So I just wanted to kind of step out and say that there are a lot of parents that are focused on the safety and the security of their children, and I think that we need to come with a holistic lens and stop talking about bigger ideas and talk about like what's immediate, what do children need, what is the reason why they're going to school and bullying, what was the reason why they can't get the education that they deserve because they're distracted in the classroom. What support do they need at home? Because there's a lot of parents that need support, and we're talking about all of the other spending that we need to do for a superintendent, but I really need a superintendent plans from what is going to make that child unstable, and I think it's identifying what the problems and the supervision and to fill in the gaps for the parents that don't have any idea who to reach out to or how to reach out to them, because I'm at the point where I want to pull my daughter out, and I also still want to participate, so I want to know.
Thank you. Thank you. As far as giving your service, well, there were some directed, you know, for getting elected for staff to teach. They're right behind you. Thank you, Dr. Larson Mitchell, for leading our minds.
Progress.
Yeah. I'll read my mind. In there.
Once upon a time, I'm sorry, Dr. Green, you go on the record. Once upon a time, in a land called CCSD, high school student councils used to present school updates to the Board of Trustees. This allowed the school executive council to come to board meetings and observe how local government worked. It allowed the school board to get to know their respective school student council members, and it allowed for a positive note to start off every school board meeting. I think when talking about pockets of greatness, my favorite phrase, this is something the school board should consider bringing back. I know for the amazing Clark Chargers, our board members would get excited when we presented because we always ended our presentation with our fight song. It got everyone on their feet and singing along. A quick 2 to 3 minute presentation from 3 to 4 schools per meeting does not take away from the business of the board, and in fact, falls to the narrative that you care about what is happening in the schools you serve. The student body presidents or their representatives should be encouraged to come back. But having students here to witness their local government in action is important. It's something that should happen at every meeting. Kids are the real customers, right? Learning about what's happening at schools, that's the business, not just robotic test takers. How can we get this on the agenda to bring this back? That's the fight worth fighting. I also want to put the definition of transparent out there. Free from pretense or deceit, easily detected or seen through, readily understood, characterized by visibility or accessibility of information, especially concerning business practices. I had students here who wanted to speak, but it's late. They have calculus tests tomorrow and they had to leave. There's something to say. Please consider morale and release a staff and teacher temperate check Google survey. We are not okay, and teachers need to be checked on. There needs to be an anonymous survey where they can voice their concerns without fear of retaliation. It's very easy to set up, and it takes no time. And we can make people at least feel heard. It should include a rating system of social emotional well-being, time requirements outside of the classroom, burnout, and maybe satisfaction with climate and culture. Maybe if you reach out and care, teachers and staff will feel heard and feel less alone. This is always my suggestion. Thank you for your time and helpful consideration tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Buell. Gonzalez, followed by Ms. Binder. See her. Binder is no longer here, and then Ms. Waters and Kevin Avery.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, interim superintendent Brenda Lawrence Mitchell, Dr. Brenda Lawrence Mitchell. I don't know if I said it last time. For the record, my name is Becky Gonzalez. I came up here because I was looking at the community listening plan, and it's a good document. I wish we were talking about that when everybody was here. There's two suggestions that I do want to make. I know when I've had communications with the Moapa area, they're concerned we did a superintendent search to make sure that they would have a community voice. Last time you did a search, I know I brought up the same concern, and Trustee Carolyn Edwards said, you know, you can't placate Moapa because I have to refer to search, and they'll just have to drive it. But the idea of having one in the seat, I think, would be helpful and would be simple for that. Then the second part two is that we heard AJ mention that you shouldn't have to be fine. I think this is clearly that's going to affect. But we're not going to sit here and suggest you have a conflict. But there's an opportunity to say maybe we can have an online form-based community. It's a little different, just like you've heard in different areas, like different languages, things like that. That's a suggestion. And then on page 2. Talk about the PTA, PTO, and organization committees. It talks about having the high school reach out to the feeder schools. That really doesn't seem functional. I know our school sits on the same block with the high school and middle school. We have had a joint SOT meeting. We talked about the family health clinic, and I can tell you that's really difficult to do. I know what the intent is, something that's it, but I'm pretty sure the board could figure out a way to it. And then finally, I'm going to mention something I mentioned last week. It is Nevada reading. We are halfway through it. I know I've had a couple of conversations with trustee plans and Trustee Cabantos. It's probably the only communication that I've had outside of the with trustee in a couple of weeks. It is big, but I can tell you, I've had people. I mean, you know, I'm ridiculous. I'm obnoxious when we do it on social media for how much proud we are. But I read it 4 classrooms today because we had so many people who were studying. So it was sad, but it was great because last year, to be honest, we didn't get a single one of this. And so what I'm hearing from the kids is things like, you know, you talk to them, and you know, I'm older, like many of them, so we don't want to forget, which was, remember a time with internet. The last question is, what'd you do when you didn't have the internet? What'd you do when your parents couldn't touch you and you didn't come home? I know what happened to me, and so forth. But it was the idea of just the joy of reading. Like I didn't have like, I know for all Dr. Seuss, but the idea is always, you know, opening up the community, making sure people can come in, like, you know, well, you know, they see some of the challenges we have also during this time, and I want the interim superintendent to know we are ensuring that learning is continuing for that. And that is something our principals constantly say. You can have fun, you can have people there, but you cannot distract you from one goal, which is to make sure that learning is that unprecedented. Thank you.
This principal's right in the nick of time. Highlighters. And then it's coming.
Camille Waters, president of the Las Vegas Alliance of Black School Educators for the National Action Network Education Committee. Listen, after listening to tonight's conversation, I do want to say that if we spend money in this district to go to great city school professional developments way over yonder, we really have to make it a point to visit schools that are further away, period. That should be a part of the ethic of this district. We are communicating something very strong to schools that are further away than 25 miles that, hey, you're not a part of the district. So I don't think that we should start out, especially if we're saying that we're in this new space and we're trying to rebuild and be innovative. Talking about innovation, I think that we should consider having an opportunity for the individuals who are applying for the superintendents to actually communicate, have a question and answer session with the community. If we really want to be innovative and really include the community, let's try something like that, that I don't know if that's ever been done here before. I have absolutely been appalled, is AJ on the phone? Because this board has really been very egregious to the community. I heard not a superintendent, but the board member say that we have a weird district. And yet that's the person who's gonna pick a superintendent. My concern is that that weird person would give a narrative, present a narrative to a superintendent that we're weird. And start us off already on a bad relationship with the person that we're looking to lead this district. And then I heard the superintendent say, I'm all over the place. Then I heard a board member say there will be less knowledge. Like the people out here in the audience can't read and write. A bachelor's in psychology, a master's in education, a master's in divinity, which is quite hard. You have to take Hebrew and Greek. And I'm working on a PhD in special education. So no, I can read, I can write, I can learn something, I can learn how to lead a board. So that's, I don't understand how we're paying a person to train this board or coach this board. When I played soccer ages ago, when I played soccer, if the coach couldn't take us to the next level, we got a new coach. The city of council, great schools, chief for change, couldn't take us to the next level, but yet we're taking advice from them. AJ, are you still there? Because you just had a board that you trained that just talked down to the community. Thank you.
All right. We are at item 4.01. Comment, we're at item 4.01. It's the meeting of the board of trustees Thursday, March 14th at 5 p.m. here in our boardroom. Colleagues, at this time, I'm moving on to the adjournments. Ron?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Trustee Brooke? Thank you, Trustee Brooke. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Guzman and Trustee Brooke. Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 7-0. The time is 7:46. Have a great evening.